Go green, yeah? So Glasgow is just currently hosting the COP26 conference on climate change, so I guess it's high time to speak about the current green agenda going on. Now let's clear up a few things up front. I do believe there's climate change, and I also do believe that human activity has massively contributed to that. But I'm really not sure what part of it is human-made and what part of it is just a natural process happening every few hundred years. But either way, I do think it's a good idea to reduce our ecological impact, especially because we are also part of the nature as humans. And this is also why we feel subconscious pain when we see the damage done to our environment. But it's easier said than done, and the picture is much more complicated than green activists often portray. Because what are the largest emitters after all? At the top we find industry and transportation, followed by agriculture, residential emission and others. So now everybody needs housing and heating when it's cold outside. So the possibilities to reduce emissions in these areas is pretty much limited, and they are also largely connected to the mere increase in world population. Now the major room for improvement is quite probably the upgrade to modern insulating and heating systems in homes. But to achieve this, major government subsidies and programs would be necessary. The room for improvement at the personal level is pretty much limited to turning your heating and electricity off when you leave. Agriculture is similar. We do need to eat, and the animals we eat, they also need to eat. Simply cutting the meat from our diet is not the solution as a lot of green activists want. Humans have always been omnivores and they will always be omnivores. Fact. You can choose to go vegan as an individual choice, but it's not going to make a huge ecological impact, especially not if you are still buying a new iPhone every year. Now I understand that keeping cattle has large ecological impact, so switching to eating smaller animals, for example chicken, could be a viable alternative, and I'm all up for that. But protein is elementary in each diet, and by keeping cattle on lands where oftentimes no other agriculture activity would be possible, we basically upcycle very low value grass to very high value meat, fat, fur, leather, etc. Also, your soy milk latte might be very fancy, but soy, besides being problematic for the male endocrine system, is also usually produced in a pretty much not eco way. So basically, industry and transportation is where we could really make big cuts, but both are very strongly linked to the consumer society in the West. Because the industry is basically emitting so much only to produce all the stuff what we want. And why do we want so much stuff? It's because we are being advertised on every freaking second. And also because Western society has been atomized by today. We used to have religion, traditions, and communities as a net to keep the people together. Remove all of these, and all you can have is consumption to reduce the elementary suffering of life. No wonder that we in the West, with very high general access to consumption, are not unambiguously happier than people from much poorer countries where consumption is not the ultimate way to cheer up. And what about transport? Why do people love driving a car so much, even in super crowded cities? Well, for the first part, because of the freedom it gives, and second, because they want to avoid social contact with complete strangers. And the freedom part is clear and understandable. You really want to decide when, how, and where you want exactly to go, and you want to arrive there by actively doing for it. This is an elementary human need. We are just simply used to having to work to get from one place to another. This is similar to having to work to get water. To get both the freedom and active part, bikes, scooters, and even motorbikes could be a viable alternative to cars, and still a huge chunk of population would never choose them over a car. Why? Because of simply being too comfortable. And that's the roots of it. The Western society has become too soft, and this toxic indulging in comfort is slowly killing us all. Just simply look at the obesity or diabetes epidemic. And what about avoiding social contact to strangers? Well, we humans are meant to live in small tribes, and we are not meant to interact with thousands of complete strangers every single day. If you don't like mingling with strangers on a daily basis, get out of big cities and move to smaller communities. So what can you do to save the planet? Well, first of all, turn the TV and radio off, or you might even want to completely throw them away. Media and government propaganda won't make you feel any better. Preferably quit or at least reduce your social media usage. And you will simply notice without so much advertising right directly into your face, you're going to simply consume less. But that's not gonna solve the root of the problem, the elementary suffering of human life. Build your own tribe, a group who you can trust and rely on, and vice versa. You might also want to embrace religion and rediscover traditions to make your life a little bit more colorful. You also want to build up a mental and physical toughness so that you don't want to be coddled that much on a daily basis. Do sport, work out, or simply challenge yourself and get out of your comfort zone every day. Forget Greta Thunberg, who is just a teenage girl throwing eco tantrums to bathe in public fame. Also forget all those clowns who preach about climate change whilst flying in private jets to the climate change conference. After all, you are human and thus by design part of nature. Just go and re-establish the connection.